Before today, high-level negotiators had tried 8 times since 1979 to reach an Israeli-Palestinian peace accord. 8 times they failed, with tragic results. Ari Fleischer was part of that history as President George W. Bush's first White House press secretary. He joins me now to share his experience and his insights. Ari, good to see you again. Let's talk a little about this. First of all, are you hopeful? The measure of success for these meetings today was that there would be another meeting. They've announced that they're going to have another meeting in 2 weeks.
Well, of course I'm hopeful, but that really isn't the right issue. Who isn't hopeful?
Right.
I have low expectations.
Right.
And I think the core problem is there anybody in power to actually deliver peace for the Palestinians? Mm-hmm. That has forever been the issue here. I mean, we're going back 10 years now, the Palestinians...
Explain what you mean by that, because clearly there is a representative of the Palestinians here, Mahmoud Abbas, and the Palestinian negotiating team. What are you saying, that they don't have the potency back home to implement whatever is negotiated?
That's exactly right, Ali. The issue with Mahmoud Abbas, who is a good man, a good heart, he wants peace, he is cut from a different cloth, is that he's seen as weak by the Palestinian people. I question how many followers he has, indeed, among people in the West Bank. I don't know that he has the strength, if he were able to do what a Sadat or a King Hussein of Jordan and Sadat of Egypt did, to actually make peace, whether he'd be able to keep his job. He does not have the people of the West Bank behind him, and I'm not sure the people of the West Bank want peace. He does. He wants peace, but he's not strong enough to deliver the people.
I spoke to 2 journalists this morning, one Israeli journalist, one Palestinian journalist. The Palestinian journalist said to me he thinks that Benjamin Netanyahu is not going to be able to come back in Israel because of the coalition that he's got, the right-leaning coalition he's got, that if he cuts any deals, he's going to have political trouble at home. So this is kind of interesting, that there are 2 views of who can actually execute peace if they make a decision.
I just disagree with that point of view. I think Netanyahu, it's the Nixon goes to China theory. Nixon strong enough to have relations with China. A Democrat could not have back in the 1970s. I think it's the same with Israel now. Netanyahu, as a man of tough hawk background, he actually is the type who can make peace with Mahmoud Abbas and the Palestinians.
And that's actually been the history in Israel. It's the hawks who have been able to get to the table because...
The hawks married up with strong Arab leaders.
Yeah.
Anwar Sadat had courage. Anwar Sadat was able and ready to be a leader. Right. Peace was made. King Hussein of Jordan, peace was made. Israel has shown that it is ready, willing, and able to make peace. The question is, are the Palestinians willing to make peace?
Talk about the relationship. President Bush had a very good relationship with his Israeli counterparts. President Obama has had what is described as a rocky relationship with Benjamin Netanyahu, who is Israel is largely thought of as a friend of the United States. How much is this going to help or impede?
I think at the end, let's say this starts to become a successful negotiation. People are really down to the final brass emotional tax. It becomes very important because the Israeli people and their prime minister are going to say, will the United States have our back if things go wrong? And that becomes a trust issue. If they don't believe Barack Obama will have their back, Israel will not take final steps.
What do you think they believe right now?
I think right now Israel's open-minded about it. They're hoping they can make progress. I think that, like many Americans, they're doubtful. We've seen this happen before. After all, Palestinians in 1999-2000, when Bill Clinton was president, they had their chance. They had 95% of the West Bank. Wasn't good enough, and they didn't want to make peace. That's why the fundamental issue is, are they ready, willing, and able to accept Israel? I think that's an open question for many Palestinians.
Talk about it on the other side. America makes great noises about the friendship between America and Israel. Can Palestinians see America as an honest broker in these negotiations?
It's tough for them. I recognize that because the United States has historically been on the side of Israel for, I think, the right reasons, the right moral reasons, and the right strategic reasons. Israel is a democracy. They're an ally, a friend of ours. Israel didn't celebrate in their streets when September 11th happened. Palestinians took to the streets of Ramallah to celebrate the September 11th attacks on our country. So we have had a historical bias toward Israel that can make it harder for the Palestinians, and I recognize that. But it's also a bias the United States should continue to have. It's the right bias to have.
But in that case, can the United States... Look, does the United States need to be the broker? In other words, can there be peace if the United States isn't the honest broker?
I don't think there can be peace without a broker, and the United States uniquely can be that broker. But way beyond us, there can't be peace unless Israel and the Palestinians want to make peace. That still is the fundamental starting point. And this will be tested now. Could be a year-long process. We'll see. At the end of the day, I still have huge questions about the Palestinian commitment to actually crossing the line, making peace with Israel, because Mahmoud Abbas is not an Anwar Sadat. He's not a King Hussein.
But you believe that he wants peace. You believe that he's coming to the table with the right agenda. Your concern is, can he sell it?
Elliot, I've sat in meetings with Mahmoud Abbas, and what's interesting with Ariel Sharon, and when Abbas walked into the room, Ariel Sharon stood up and hugged him. Mahmoud Abbas is a man of peace. He's genuine. He is different. He wants it. And the question is he strong enough to do something that for many, many Palestinians will be terribly unpopular? Recognize Israel, the Jewish state. That's the real question of leadership. He wants it. I don't know that he's strong enough to deliver it.
Does it matter to security in the world? When President Bush was in office and you were a spokesman, I think I would argue that it was more important in that day because it was really it was key to peace in the region and peace elsewhere. And 10 years before that, it was even more important. Today, global peace doesn't seem to depend as much on Israel and Palestine getting together and getting along with each other.
Well, we're just in a lull. Thankfully.
Right.
It will eternally be important. There are other major issues, too, of course, Iran, whether they get nuclear weapons, and they're going to try to do that regardless of whether peace is made. That's a wholly different, bigger problem. But you don't have to think back 2006, the shooting war with Hezbollah, when missiles were being launched, and Israel had to evacuate a quarter of its country. It's calm now. The economies in both the West Bank and Israel are good, thankfully, for both places. But it's always a tinderbox. Hezbollah and Hamas on Israel's borders, Iranian agents really is what they are. It can always go up, and then all of a sudden the flashpoint resumes.
So, in other words, we do have to stick to this.
Absolutely. This never goes away.
All right, good to see you as always. Thank you.
My pleasure, Al.
Ari Fleischer, former White House press secretary.